second.
Because I think beforehand, I think Danny Miki was the inker for Tony Daniel, and Danny
Yep.
Miki is a great inker
Yeah.
because like Danny Miki inked, I think David Finch. He's like
Yeah.
David Finch's inker.
He also inked for Capullo the latter half of the Snyder Capullo
Yeah,
Batman run.
yeah, he inked like Endgame and I think the last half of Zero Year or like parts
I
of
think
Zero
he
Year.
inked all of Zero Year.
Hmm.
I think Glapion stopped after Death of the
As
Phantom.
a family,
I'm almost entirely sure.
yeah,
But I mean,
um,
Mickey looked great. I like Glapion though. Like I'm really partial to him. I've met the
yeah,
guy. That's who like did those by me. I mean,
yeah,
I've talked to you about it before.
yeah,
But I really want to get like a full gallery of him doing like the
yeah.
heads of Batman's rogues. Like I want to get a Talon really bad.
Because I think the difference between like Glapion and Miki is that I think Miki has like more shadows. Like he's way more shadowy than Glapion. But
Yeah,
and like another inker that comes to my mind is Joe Prado, who is the regular inker of Ivan Reis.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Joe
um,
Carl's also done like some pencils for DC, I think.
yeah, he's a penciler here and there, but he's mostly known as an inker.
Yeah. But
I,
oh, we got some chatter in the comment section. Smoky Dude and Justice Books. What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining us on this. Well, a chilly where I live, I guess. I don't know.
um, it's actually pretty warm here. Like if you consider like 40 degrees warm or like 30 or 40 degrees warm for winter.
Yeah, I live in New England, so it's brick. Also,
Yeah.
if anybody sees me make a weird face, it's probably because this energy drink sucks.
I don't drink energy drinks.
Dude, I had to, man. It was such a
Yeah, I know.
long week. I was like, if I'm gonna be cohesive, I need like something. And like,
Like I don't drink coffee. I don't drink energy drinks. I know like I'm like the only one of the only people that doesn't. But
yeah, and
like I
you stay up pretty late sometimes. I don't know how you do it.
yeah yeah I usually stay up until like 2 in the morning, but I usually get like 8 hours of sleep, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but I think you feeling ready to get into it.
Yeah, just let me grab. Actually, I have my coffee on my dresser. Let me go. It's like right behind me,
Yeah.
just in case. Just in case I need to flip through and remember stuff.
Energy drinks are garbage, man. Yeah, wait till you do college and you work full time.
Yep.
You change your tune. I'll definitely say that. I did not drink coffee really in high school, and then college it was like energy drinks, coffee, work. You know, I work full time too,
Yeah, I work full time as well.
so it's like I need it. I cannot function, and I don't. And I'm like too like I procrastinate too hard, so I don't sleep very much.
Yeah, I don't. I try not to procrastinate, but sometimes I do.
Yeah, but I'll intro us in. How does my audio sound, by the way? Am I like super echoey?
No, you're pretty good. I have some echo on my end, but it's not that bad.
Okay.
Like I don't have any now, but sometimes
Okay.
there's echo, sometimes there's not.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure it sounds good. Like, unfortunately, there is
Yeah.
a bit of reverb in this room, but I'll intro us in. Hey guys, welcome to the 16th episode of Let's Talk Comics, where myself and another co-host in the comics community discuss one of the many facets of the storytelling medium that is comics. Whether it be stories, creators, constructs, or adaptations, we hit it all. Today we have a very special guest and a returning guest on behalf of Taylor from the 52 PickUP podcast, man. It's good to have you back on.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. It's I like you were I mean, I know you were like, let's do Batwoman. Like that
Yeah.
was one of the central focus. Like we did I think even before we did Aquaman, we were like, all right, like we'll do Aquaman and then we'll do Batwoman like when the Elseworlds thing happens.
Yep.
Because that's when people are probably going to be a little bit more interested in the character.
Hmm.
Although like Kate Kane, I think, is incredibly underrated, and I think you know that even more so than I do.
Yes, very much so.
She's
Like
had, and she's had a like during her short time in like the DC continuity, she's had a pretty good laundry list of creators to have worked on her.
yes, like we'll get into it, but like she's Greg Rucka's baby because Greg Rucka created her. James Tynion did a great job with her in Detective.
Mm.
J.H. Williams, who's the artist in this book we're talking about, but he also co-wrote it in the New 52 with Haden Blackman and also drew it. Not a lot of people talk about the Mark and Draco run because it's not really that good. Because he came in right after J.H. Williams and Haden Blackman left, and there was a lot of bad blood between Blackman and DC
Yeah.
because of things we'll not talk about. And then Marguerite Bennett, even though I felt her run was very, I think it started off well, but I just didn't think she knew what to do, and it became really messy.
Yeah.
It had great art, but it was just very messy, and it was hard to follow,
Yeah. I
and it
also,
and it, and it didn't sell well, so it got canceled. So
yeah, it's and that was unfortunate. And because what was it? The first issue, like Steve Epting, and suddenly Steve Epting's not there.
yeah, Steve Epting did the first arc actually, and it was really good. And then Stephanie Hans did an issue, and her art is great. And then Fernando Blanco came on, and his art is good, but it's not the same as Steve Epting, but his art is still really good.
Yeah, didn't Blanco do like a good majority of the series?
Yeah, he did like the last half of it, or
Yeah.
like the last chunk of it
Yeah,
until
I
the
just
end.
ended up getting bogged down. But so as you guys can see by the title, by the thumbnail, and partly I hope by the conversation that we've been leading up to, is we're going to be talking Batwoman Elegy by Greg Rucka and J.H. Williams. If you guys haven't heard of either of them, you just need to read more comics, I guess. Greg Rucka is known for pioneering Wonder Woman. He's done a great job on Batman. And I know Taylor, you're very familiar with a number of his independent titles.
Yeah, Lazarus is my favorite. Um, Creating Country is another one of my favorites. He's very into like very empowering female characters because most of his books are female led, and that's what I love about him because a lot of female characters get overlooked. Even when it comes to Batman, Sasha Bordeaux was introduced in his Batman run, and she became really important in Checkmate, which is another one of his like more overlooked runs, and that came out of OMAC Project and Infinite Crisis,
Yep.
which is also really good.
Yeah, he also did. Yeah,
Um,
he also did OMAC Project.
yeah, he also did OMAC Project, which is really good.
Really good.
That kind of got overshadowed by all the Infinite Crisis stuff going on at the
I
time.
I thought it was great. I don't know why
Yeah,
people don't give that book love. Like,
and it was like really like you kind of have to read OMAC Project to understand some parts of Infinite Crisis.
yeah,
And of course he co-wrote 52 with Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, and Mark Waid, and that's where Batwoman was created in 52.
yeah,
Specifically 52 number 7.
yeah. I got the first volume right here.
Yeah,
It's,
and
yeah,
yeah,
no,
yes,
and Samoki Dude brings up Black Magic as well.
yeah. Black Magic is so good. That's his creator-owned book with Nicholas Scott.
Yeah,
And that's Nicholas Scott's best work in my opinion. It's so good.
yeah. I've heard great things about it. It's something I
Yeah,
definitely want to check out. But yeah, and J.H. Williams, who I mean, he actually went on, like Taylor briefly brought up. He actually went on to do to co-run another series with Batwoman for the majority of the New 52 Batwoman run.
yeah. The
Say,
first half. Yeah,
yeah,
the first. Yeah, like
yeah,
he wrote I think up until issue 24, 25, and
yeah,
then the book got canceled at issue 40. So yeah, he did more than half of it.
yeah. So he co-wrote and drew that book. J.H. Williams, for those of you watching who don't know, has a very like I would almost say like painterly style. Like not
Yeah,
only in the sense that like the lines are very evident of pencil work, but all of the shading and the finer details look very painterly.
yeah. I would agree. Like I wouldn't consider like him a painted artist like Alex Ross
Malieve.
or Malieve or Matina. I think Matina's like kind of painted. Um, but yeah, he's very clean and he's very dynamic as an artist, especially with his panel layouts, because his panel layouts are some of the most unique panel layouts in the industry.
They are spectacular. They are.
Yeah.
That was like one of the things like before I read Elegy, you were like, you're gonna like this because I'm like one of the people that I love crazy cool, unique panel layouts. And Batwoman Elegy definitely has some really crazy panel layouts.
Yeah.
It's like that's probably one of the most like graphically attractive parts about the whole story.
Yeah.
I
I
think
agree.
they're incredibly interesting. But for those of you watching, I will give a little bit of a warning. I am sick. My voice is pretty shot, so I'm going to be sounding a little bit raspy, like a 40-year-old woman in her midlife crisis who smokes cigarettes all of her life. So,
And
so
and I'm gonna apologize too because I'm kind of sick too. So if I cough, I cough.
yeah,
I have to deal with it.
yeah, it happens. Some Okie Dude saw Into the Spider-Verse last night, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
I third that it was fantastic.
It was
I
spectacular.
saw it this afternoon.
I've heard a lot of people say that they think it's their favorite movie of the year, like over, or they think it's the best movie of the year, like over Avengers. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that
Yeah,
question because I
because it's
think
completely different from Avengers.
right, it's completely different, but like also they both have like such intense merits in their own very like defining ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But like I don't fault anybody for saying that. It's not one of those
yeah.
things that I would like wince at. Um,
Me neither.
it's pretty spectacular. Uh, and
Amazing,
but
even.
yeah, amazing even. And for those of you who didn't watch it, plug, I dropped a little reaction to it over on my channel. You can find it probably somewhere. Uh, yeah, it's like one of my last 3 videos, so you guys can go check that out. Again, really sorry about my voice. I sound absolutely terrible, but as we do every week, we'll get into our pull of the week, which is going to be a book that I mean, at this point it's Tuesday, so I know you haven't gotten to read any of the books that came out this week. I've been sick, so I haven't been able to read any of the review copies yet. But I'd probably say I'm most excited for Freedom Fighters #1. I know you and I have talked about this at great lengths. It's Robert Venditti on writing duties, and Eddie Barrows on art, who is an incredibly underrated Brazilian artist who did the first couple of arcs, the first 2 arcs in James Tynion's detective run for DC Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a couple of interspersed issues here and there, but really spectacular. Honestly, like when this book was first announced, I didn't care what it was. I saw Venditti and Barrows on a book, and I was just like, put it in my box.
Yep, pretty much agree. I can't wait for Freedom Fighters. I've actually never read a Freedom Fighters book, so I'm really interested.
Yeah, me neither. And what I like is like when I got to sit down and talk to Venditti, he had talked about how he's a history buff, and Freedom Fighters is very much contingent on like alternative history sport, like spanning from World War II onward. So I'm really interested to see what parallels he's going to use, what actual historical occurrences he's going to use. You know what I mean? I think he's going to
Yeah,
pull a lot of great like story threads throughout uh,
yeah,
this. I don't want to reuse the word story, but story.
yeah. Agreed. I'm also really looking forward to Kelly Sue DeConnick's Aquaman that
Yeah,
starts with amazing art by Robson Roca, who's also one of the most underrated artists
yeah. No, he's
in the
incredible. I
industry.
mean, I know it's hard for people to see through the camera, but this is an authentic comic book page from Teen Titans Special #1. Robson Roca did it. One of these days, I'll probably um, I don't know. Once I finish this little studio, I'll probably do a little studio tour. It's not much, but it's that page where I know you didn't read it, but Black Mask is just chilling in a sauna, and you just follow Damian Wayne like making his way through, and then the last panel is him kind of hovering above Black Mask, and he's like boo, and Black Mask is just chilling in a sauna like with a towel wrapped around his waist.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. So he's a stellar artist. I also think that the at least the little plot synopsis that they've given us beforehand sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I know people are kind of critical that it's another amnesia story, and DC loves their amnesia stories, but like to me, when it came to Aquaman, Amnet's run started off good, but once it went monthly, it got really slow moving.
Yeah,
The art was great though. Like Cedric, even though his art kind of went down in quality with each issue, like it was still good, but like the first two issues are great looking, and then it kind of went down. And when Federici came on, Federici did the art for Murder Machine, which is probably one of my favorite Dark Knights one shots.
Yeah.
His art was fantastic,
Yeah.
minus some panels that were kind of off at some points, but
Dude, DC is raking in a lot of European artists. Like we were talking earlier about like Brazilian artists. They've done a lot of great work with like Italian artists, like Batman
yeah,
Europa. Every single one of those artists interchanging between each issue was a different
yeah.
Italian artist besides Jim Lee in the first issue.
Yeah, like I know they made a big deal about getting Marini for Dark Prince Charming, and that like I didn't read Dark Prince Charming, but it's a gorgeous looking book.
Yeah, no, I have both hardcovers somewhere on my bookshelf there. I actually never finished it. I read the first one, and then life just caught up, so I've never gotten a
Yeah,
chance to read the second one. I'll probably read the
yeah,
whole thing sometime soon.
yeah, it makes sense. Um, I don't know if there's any other big books coming out,
No,
but
I mean, I'm excited for American Carnage #2.
yeah,
Brian Edward Hill did a fantastic job on issue one. I think that he's going to be crafting a topical story that's going to just hit home on a number of different levels. The art
yeah,
was really solid. I'm just excited for it. I'm
yeah,
excited to see him kind of play outside of other people's play boxes. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I haven't gotten to read any of his previous independent work. The most experimental thing that I've read that he's done is the Michael Cray stuff, which is really crazy and cool and different. But I'm really, really, really excited to see what he's got in store for us in American Carnage.
yeah. I love the first issue, so I'm looking forward to. The problem with these Vertigo books is that they don't really market them, so you forget when they come out.
Yeah, and like these are some of them. Like I don't know, like American Carnage was one of the things I'm most excited for.
Yeah,
Because or it has
yeah,
been for a while.
yeah. Like when it was announced, that was probably the one that I was most interested in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
And then for those of you watching too, I know there are a few of you who were around when we did our first interview with Brian Edward Hill. But we're going to be interviewing him again this Sunday. I don't know if we have a time yet, but I'll keep a watch on my Twitter. I'll definitely post about it. But we're going to be talking about Titans as Titans closes out because I mean, as you know, he wrote the he mainlined that Asylum episode actually. Like that was his episode. And I know it's been really divisive. I was pretty divided on how I felt about it. And he also was a staff writer, I think, from the episode previous to that and on. So I'm interested to get
yeah,
into a little bit about Titans. We'll get into American Carnage, and we're gonna get into his upcoming Batman and the Outsiders. So I
yeah.
think it'll be a really interesting chat.
Which sadly got delayed, which
Did
I'm
it
kind of
really?
bummed about. Yeah. Well, it got delayed because it was supposed to come out this month, but it got delayed to indefinitely, so we don't know when it's coming out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I saw something about that.
Yeah.
And Brian was like, "Yeah, it's still happening." I'm definitely gonna ask him about that. That's
Yeah,
a
it's still happening. He probably doesn't know because I think there's a lot of like changing landscapes going on at DC right now because of like I think the problem with it is that like both with the schedule of Doomsday Clock and also Heroes in Crisis is kind of getting things all out of whack in terms of where things land at DC. And I think that's one of the main problems why Justice League Odyssey got delayed and why it hasn't really been hitting the mark with a lot of people.
yeah,
But like to me, it's not hitting the mark with me personally. But
yeah, 100%. And on the topic of talent recruiting, Ant Duhar says he agrees with DC's talent for recruiting solid illustrators within their titles. Just pure skill and talented illustrators. It's surprising that Marvel isn't doing much of the same. Yeah, I mean, DC has been doing a great job at going outside the boundaries of the US and just finding talented artists.
yeah,
And
I agree.
and I think that's part of what has shaped DC into what it is today, because without the whole British invasion, and DC, I think, was a very large part of that,
Yeah,
if
because
not the biggest component to bringing those creators over here.
yeah,
I think
because like during like the late 80s, early 90s, like Neil Gaiman was a big pull when he came to do Sandman, like one of the most acclaimed comics of all time.
yeah,
Warren Ellis. like pretty much redefined comics in the late '90s.
Yeah, Garth Ennis.
Garth Ennis, Grant Morrison,
Yeah, actually, speaking of
like
Garth Ennis, I just got a buddy of mine for Christmas. I know he's not watching this, so I can say I got him the Absolute Preacher Volume 1. So that's
nice.
yeah, it's
I,
definitely
I haven't I haven't read Preacher. I still need to get around to it.
it's really good. I haven't finished it yet. It's
I know Garth Ennis kind of went off the rails after Preacher, but
yeah, but
I've heard Hitman is pretty good, but after that, like The Boys and his Ghost Rider run, I've heard is really nuts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've yet to read any of those things besides Preacher, so
Yeah,
I guess I'll have to try to form my own opinion about it. But yeah, I mean, DC has always been a big pioneer in pulling international talent, and I think that's one of the things that makes them so strong. Um, I mean, a lot of these like, and I mean, you see a lot of them like was like Emmanuel Lupacino,
yeah,
who was a recurring artist on The Witching Hour and all that good stuff.
yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what goes on. I hope to see more and more artists. I would love to see guys like Matina. Like imagine Matina doing like an interior prestige format book or something.
Um, yeah. Like my problem with artists like Matina, like his art is great, but I think his art fits great with covers. I don't know how it would fit with interiors.
Yeah.
That's that's my main problem with Lieber Mayo.
Hmm.
Like, I like Lieber Mayo is a great illustrator. All of his stuff is beautiful looking. I just don't think his art flows with interiors. Um, I just think it's kind of static,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I can see where you get that. I like it. I really really like his art. It just feels I don't know when I read books illustrated by him
Like
and
his
those
art
kind
just
of
his art fits the tone of the story that's being told.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like for me, it just when the way that he illustrates his stuff, it just feels like I'm going, like I'm actually watching something
Yeah,
in still frames. You know what I mean?
yeah, I agreed. Like I think his art in Batman Damned, of what I've seen of it, I don't read Batman Damned because you know my opinion on it. Like it's just not appealing to me.
Hmm.
But I think his art is way better in Batman Damned than it was in say Joker, because in Joker he didn't ink it himself. He had a different inker, and it looked very inconsistent from page to page.
Hmm.
But with Batman Damned, it looks consistent all the way through.
Yeah.
So
No, the art's beautiful.
yeah,
The story and the script is definitely controversial, but I don't think anyone
yeah,
has anything poor to say about the artwork. But
yeah,
with all that being said, there are a couple really interesting books coming out this week. I think a lot of them are like just going to be these underground hits. You know what I mean? None of
yeah,
them are really big names, so to speak. But I think all of them have potentials to be fantastic titles. So if
yeah,
any of them pique your interest, make sure you guys go check them out. Support your local comic book store, and support the creative teams on those books. And I'm gonna plug it again. Go buy Detective 994 because it's fucking spectacular.
yeah,
Mossy, Doug Mank absolutely killed it. I don't want to get too far into it because I'll go off on a
yeah.
massive tangent. Um, I loved
And
it, Taylor. I know we talked at length.
yeah, I loved it too. It's some of Doug. I love Doug Mankey. He's one of my favorite artists. This is some of his best art in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
The script is great. The story plotting seems to be great. I feel like
yeah,
in a first issue, we almost got like a full 3 acts in a first issue,
yeah,
knowing that this is still, the beginning
yeah,
part of the first act to the overall narrative he's trying to tell for his first story arc. So
yeah. And I also got a plug book. Go buy Hawkman #7.
also buy that. Very good.
Yes, buy Hawkman #7. Sadly, it's dropping in sales really fast, which
Yeah.
sucks because it's one of the best books out on the market. So go
I,
buy Hawkman.
I agree. Hawkman's been spectacular, and you guys don't need to be a fan of Hawkman to jump into it.
No,
The only bit of Hawkman I knew was like random research I did on the internet,
yeah,
and I walked into issue one, and he does such a spectacular job for new and old fans at just
yeah,
marrying the continuity with just fantastic
yeah,
world building and
yeah,
craftsmanship, and it makes everything cohesive. It's absolutely spectacular. Brian Hitch is doing some of his
yeah.
best artwork, I think, on that book.
And And even though I do recommend going back to issue 1, you could jump in at issue 7 and be fine.
You could. I think that if you read from the beginning, it would feel a lot more rewarding. But
Yeah, it would feel a lot more rewarding, but you can jump in because it's pretty much just a one shot.
yeah,
But you can,
let's see.
but
Someone just
it's
asked, "Is
yeah.
Martian Manhunter any good?" Negative.
I didn't read it.
I think that Steve Orlando has some really great ideas for Martian Manhunter, and you get to see a couple of them throughout the first issue. But I think that both the story and and just like the overall quality of the book just gets bogged down by absolutely clumsy dialogue. Um, I would
And
even venture to say overly ambitious plot.
yeah,
You know
and
that
to
you're
me,
just
the main thing that took me away from that book is Riley Rossmo's art. I can't stand his art. So
no, I can't either, and I've argued at great lengths, and you've seen me argue at great lengths with people about how I don't like Riley Rossmo. I get it. Not every comic book artist, if not any of them, are going to be anatomically correct. But I don't think it's where he chooses to exaggerate proportion. I don't think is aesthetically pleasing. But
yeah,
we spent a lot of time
yeah. Let's get on with the main
the main
event.
which is Batwoman Elegy, like we were saying by Greg Rucka, J.H. Williams. It takes place. What is it like? Technically, is it a couple? No, it's like a couple months after 52
It's a couple months after 52, and it's after Bruce Wayne disappears after Final Crisis.
or Infinite Crisis.
Final Crisis. It's after. It's in. I think it came out in 2008,
Oh,
so it's after Final
well,
Crisis.
okay.
I
I
can
was thinking
check.
of 52.
Yeah,
52.
50. Yeah, 52. It's right after Infinite Crisis, but I'm talking about like where this
Oh,
book takes place in terms of the landscape of DC. It came out in 2008, which is after Final Crisis, after Bruce Wayne disappeared, and that's why Bruce Wayne isn't in this book.
right, right. Yeah, and so
Sorry to confuse you there.
no, it's not your fault at all. But so for those of the folks watching at home that don't know too much about Batwoman, do you want to let them know like how did Kate Kane get her start in comic books? Where did she come from?
um, Kate Kane, she was created in 52 number 7. Um, Technically, she is credited to all the writers of 52, but the writer that wrote that story is Greg Rucka. So she's created by Greg Rucka and Ken Lashley, who drew the issue. Um, she's like, you don't really get most of her origin until this,
Mhm.
but she's what you need to know that she's connected to Renee Montoya because she is a former flame of Renee Montoya because Renee Montoya is lesbian and Kate Kane is also lesbian.
Mhm.
And she's also Bruce Wayne's cousin on his mother's side.
Yep.
Um, and basically, her whole story in 52 is that she's helping Renee Montoya and Vic Sage, the Question, helping dismantle the religion of crime, which is like this messianic cult that praises the crime Bible, which is basically it follows the exploits of Cain from Cain and Abel,
Mhm.
and it's basically the objects that Cain killed Abel with, and um, and they're basically trying to dismantle it. And at the end of 52, spoiler, they dismantle it by I don't think they killed because like there was this whole prophecy where like the twice named, which is Kate Kane, will die, and then Gotham will be raised in flame and like burned to the ground. But they stop Bruno Mannheim, who's the leader of both Intergang and the crime and the religion of crime, and because that's where this book like pretty much takes place is that it's after the whole ordeal, and there's a new leader of the religion of crime that Kate is trying to figure out who it is.
Right, and that's pretty much where we pick up at the beginning of this story. Kate Kane is chasing down a couple of street level thugs trying to get some sort of intel on
Yeah.
the religion of crime.
Yep.
And might I add, literally, I think it's like within the first the second page of this book, we talked about like spectacular page layout, and this is
Yep.
one of them. J.H. Williams, and it's the title page. the
Yep.
story. It looks incredible.
Yep.
It's like segmented into pieces of like a bat symbol. And
Yep.
J.H. Williams, one of the things I love is the way that, and does he color his own stuff?
No, it's Dave Stewart, who is like one of the preeminent colorists in the industry. He's known as mainly known as Mike Mignola's inker on Hellboy,
Mhm.
but he's a big colorist in the industry. He's one of the best colorists in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was Williams that mapped it out for him or if it was entirely Stewart's decisions, but I love the way he plays with like the red, black, and white,
Agreed.
especially in the first couple pages where it's just Kane kind of perusing around Gotham.
Yep.
She just sticks out like a sore thumb in the best of ways.
Yep.
It's just visually appealing, and the way like he gradiates those reds, they just look so
Yep.
smooth and crispy.
Yep.
Um, But essentially, the plot follows Kate trying to figure more out about the religion of crime. We get a little, I would call, we get an appearance from Batman. I wouldn't even call it a
Yeah.
cameo.
Yeah.
Um,
It's an appearance.
one of which you get a little bit of like an ironic forewarning. He's like, "Hey," and if for those of you who don't know, Kate Kane, Batwoman, if you can look at the thumbnail later. Um, but she has long red hair, which if you know Kit Kane, you know it's a wig underneath. Half the time she has a buzz cut. In this story, it's very much shoulder length. But Batman even kind of as he's talking things out with her, kind of letting intel flow back and forth. He's like, "You should probably be careful about that wig because if someone pulls on that hard enough, like it's all over."
Yeah.
It foreshadows something later in the book. I like how like straightforward Greg Rucka is in his writing with this issue.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of like really artistic symbolism, but when it comes down to like the nitty gritty of the plot and where the narrative is going, it's all right there.
Yeah. That's what I love about Greg Rucka. He's very straight and narrow when it comes to his plotting, and that's very evident in like the all the books that he writes, especially this and like his Wonder Woman stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
like yeah,
And you know what's interesting here, and I think this is an interesting study on Kate Kane, the way Williamson Williams, sorry, draws her. Do you notice that like almost the entire time that she's like perusing around Gotham as Batwoman, she's smiling, but as
yeah,
soon as she takes the cowl off, the
like
smile's
yeah,
gone.
yeah. I didn't even notice that. That's actually a great.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
for me, it seems like and I think it becomes more evident throughout this book. Batwoman seems to be a very cathartic outlook for her.
yeah,
Outlet, I should say.
and I think another big character that I think is really important is her father.
Yeah.
She's and a lot of people know her father from being kind of the bad guy in Detective in
Yep.
James Tynion's
Detective
Detective,
Rebirth.
but he's totally different in this book. He's not like really evil or like wanting to destroy Batman. He's really like he supported Kate in Tynion's Detective, but like he's way more like he's kind of like hard on Kate in this book.
It's all tough
Like
love. Yeah.
he's all tough love. He's very like sarcastic, and I love that. He's what a father would be like if his daughter was being a vigilante like this.
No, it's awesome because I mean, you know that on some level, this is a parallel of Bruce and Alfred.
Yeah,
It just, it draws a lot less similarity, but it's definitely relevant. And in some way or another, the protagonist, the main bat protagonist, is always going to have someone that's going to, bust their ass and crack down on them when they're not doing, what they should
yeah,
be. It's just that, Colonel Jacob Kane and Alfred have two very different methods of doing so.
yeah. And another focus that I love on this is Kate Kane's methods are totally different from Bruce's. She carries a gun with her.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, she takes very clear inspiration from Bruce and Batman, and I think at this point she didn't know that Bruce was Batman, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, Bruce knew that she was Batwoman, but she didn't know she couldn't reciprocate that level of knowledge. And Yeah, I mean it's if for those of you who didn't read 52, you know that pretty much her uh my father I shall become a bat moment was literally Batman coming through and saving her on the streets of Gotham on a hard night, and she looks up at the bat signal, and that was kind of her equivalent of that year one moment where she decides like this is the symbol that I want to represent. And I find it really interesting, because this, I think, for me, is the first true interpretation that someone else has of being the bat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
She's being the bat in her own outlet. No one else has really truly done that, um,
yeah,
besides maybe Jean Paul Valley, but that didn't quite work out so well.
no,
And I find it interesting that there are some very central, definitive points that taking on the mantle of the bat kind of ensues. But for her, she's very distinct in her own right. Like you had brought up, for example, she's not afraid to be a little bit more brutal.
yeah.
You
I
know,
think that's her military background like coming through because she's a military brat.
yeah. I mean, the entire time she refers to her father as sir
Yeah,
for a good majority of it. And I mean, it's just really interesting, like reading her as her own character, totally separate from Bruce. And I think that's one of the things that makes her so special is that for a long time she was independent of the Bat family.
yeah, agreed.
Um, so uh, pretty much the entire first issue is her kind of following a couple leads to the religion of crime, and we soon meet the our main antagonist of the book, and that is the new leader of the religion of crime. Her name is Alice, and yes, it is entirely indicative of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland series. And yes, one of the things I love about this is that they're entirely like they're not shying away from the fact
They're
like
self-aware.
yeah, they're
Yeah,
entirely self-aware. There's a line somewhere in here where it's like, don't we already have like another
yeah,
Lewis?
yeah. Kate is like we already have another nut job based off of Alice in Wonderland here.
Yeah. So but like I I think I think that Alice is such a unique villain
Yeah,
from the get-go. I mean, you can tell, that she very much puts herself into the character that she's trying to play here.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, as a design overall, I love too that, like, I don't want to spoil it yet,
yeah.
but you know that there is some sort of relationship between these two characters. And if you notice that the color palettes that are used on them,
They're complete opposite.
they're complete opposite, but they both have hints of the other person.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
Alice is bleach white, whereas Kate Kane, like, yes, her skin is bleach white, and she has and Alice has little highlights of red, where Kate's suit is half red.
yeah.
So
And also what I love is that we talked about Mad Hatter, of course based off of Mad Hatter, but she's very much like the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland.
yep,
Like
yeah,
just the way she looks,
yeah.
the
Even
way
her
she's designed.
character design,
Yeah,
and man, these page layouts are so cool.
yeah,
Um, But so they start scrapping away. That woman is the clear victor, sprays her with this gas, and I thought this was such a cool scene. There's a panel where it takes you inside of Alice's mouth, where just has a razor blade hidden,
yeah,
and it's laced with some sort of neurotoxin, and she just clamps it down and cuts between the face. I
yeah,
mean, she's so ruthless.
yeah,
And I like so forward thinking. I don't know. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was super unique. Like
yeah,
you see like the random, like Assassin's Creed like wrist blade or whatever,
yeah,
like holding a laced, and it almost leads me to believe because there are some parts where Williams draws like the frames to the panels like via the perspective of Alice, and it's all trippy. So it almost leads me to believe that like she's normalized whatever the toxin is doing to other
yeah.
people. You
So
know what I
she's
mean?
immune to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't even think she's immune to it. I think she's normalized it. Like that's just her reality now,
yeah,
rather than being like completely immune to it.
Yeah.
But she plays very much on Kate Kane's humanity
Yeah.
from the get go. And you wanna continue off from there?
Yeah, basically what there's this great page where we'll get into it later because it factors into her origin story where it's basically Batwoman, but in the background is like her origin, like when she was a kid. And I guess we'll get into that later, but like I just like marvel at these layouts and just the composition.
Yeah.
Um, because it's so crazy when you look at Williams's art. It's totally, it's really different when he's drawing Batwoman from when he's drawing Kate. Because when he's drawing Kate, it's more like stripped down, more basic, more bare bones. But when he's drawing Batwoman, he goes like all out.
It's almost
And
mythic.
yeah, it's almost that's what I love about it so much.
Yeah.
And and
So yeah, when she's able to get that upper hand on Kate, that neurotoxin enters her system, and again, that foreshadowing from earlier, she rips Kate Kane's wig off and just kicks her off of a wall.
yep,
As Kate begins to hallucinate, and you see, it's a little bit of foreshadowing from the origin story we're gonna get, I think, in the following issue or maybe the issue after.
yeah,
I think Rucker kind of pretty much continues to hint at it up until it actually happens.
yeah. That's what I love about it because he gives hints about it. But then once you and it makes you more intrigued about her origin, and once you get into her origin, like I would say it's as tragic, if not more tragic, than Bruce's origin. Because it's I'll get into it because there's some fan theories about it. that sorry
No,
that
I mean the Kane family in general, like their history is very
yeah,
convoluted just between the different ages of comics.
yeah, and I kind of lost my train of thought, but and then it goes into like these trippy sequences where she's like tripping out, and there's these people that change into different like animals. Like there's one person, and these are some of them are parts of the original of crime, and some of them aren't. One of the main ones they focus on is Kyle Abbott. He's he wasn't a member of the religion. He was a member of Intergang, which was basically what Intergang is that it's an international crime organization. It's like Interpol, but like the criminal version. It's also led by Bruno Mannheim. And Kyle Abbott was actually a creation by Greg Rucka in his detective run with Whisper Adair, who's also connected to Mannheim and Intergang. And she's also connected to Ra's al Ghul, but that's his detective run that I don't want. That's his other detective run that I don't want to get into right now.
Well, I mean, immediately, I think it's like the second issue jumps into the contrast, or maybe this is the end of issue one.
Yeah,
The contrast between her and Kate, after she kicks Kate off the wall and just leaves her to kind of trip out in the woods surrounding her. I guess her headquarters. She just begins to off everybody in the room.
yeah,
Everybody, and mind you, they're all her followers. To her, there is that big contrast that everyone is disposable, and it'll play into later when you find out who she is as a character. But you can immediately see, that she is the antithesis to Kate Kane. Kate Kane very much, she went through her trauma, which we'll get into very soon, and because of that, she holds her bonds very, very dear.
yeah,
So you see, at, Alice is very much, to her, everyone's disposable. To Kate, everybody she gets close to is more valuable than even her own life.
yeah. And as we get into like the later issues of this, the third issue probably has my favorite scene, and it's the dance with Maggie Sawyer at like the ball, like the policeman's ball, or like
Yeah.
some type of ball. And it's great how Williams panels this out because they're dancing and like they're kind of like having witty banter back and forth. Because Maggie Sawyer is also lesbian. And
Well, it's because they were shown at the beginning of the issue they were dating.
Yeah, they were dating.
Maggie Sawyer broke up with her towards the beginning of the story, I should say, because she thinks that Kate's sleeping around. She doesn't know that Kate's Batwoman.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
and like, but
and
even
what?
before that, leading into that, on the grounds, there's a big shootout where Kate's father Jacob comes to save her, and those three humans that in Kate's mind look like these fantastical creatures because of the neurotoxin, they assist Jacob in kind of hightailing it out of there and getting Kate to safety, and then
Yeah.
that's where we eventually get into the ball. But before that, man, there's this page. It's absolutely stunning where they're laying Kate down in the van as they're or the Jeep, whatever that is, to get her out of there, and
Yeah.
where Stewart uses like that almost like that rainbow coloring
Oh
in her hair
yeah.
and in her symbol is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. And I love it how she like breaks the page down the middle,
Yeah,
and you have like the two, like, and the panels are broken into like fours, like two groups of four, and she's splitting it down the middle. That's
yep,
such a great way to like break, like break a page.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, on the topic of Williams' art, and Duhar in the chat, he agrees with the mythic style of Williams' art. He wonders what we think about the Batwoman Rebirth series. He thought it was pretty interesting and a decent addition to Batwoman's mythology. I only read like the first arc and a half. The first arc was really, really interesting. Steve Epting's art, I think, was really, really suited,
Fantastic. Yeah.
really, really suited to Batwoman. I eventually fell off. I got a little bit bored with it because I got to a point where I was still buying, like I bought the entire series and I just have yet to read it. But if I wasn't like in love with the series, I didn't really have the time to keep up with it on the regular. What
Yeah.
about you, Taylor?
Um, I thought it was fine. I thought the main problem with it is that I think Bennett introduced too many plot points and she just didn't know how to connect them. So it just got really messy and kind of hard to follow.
Yeah, no, I think you summarized that really well. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry, you were getting into the ball. I just wanted to lead people up into
Yeah.
the gala where she
Yeah.
has the awkward dance with her ex girlfriend. But continue.
Yeah. And like I don't want to go through like all the dialogue because you pretty much just like pretty much consolidated the whole scene. And what's great is that like after the dance, she goes like through the ball and she mistakes someone for Renee Montoya, but it's not Renee Montoya.
Hmm.
And that's a callback to 52 because she's really intrinsically connected to Renee Montoya.
Yeah, absolutely. And we find out later that Renee Montoya is an integral part of her origin story, even.
Yep.
Um, so no, man, feel free to continue on.
Um, well, at the end of it, at the end of this issue, we kind of get the reveal of Alice, who she really is. Um, it's um, it's her sister Elizabeth Kane, which we'll get into once we get to the origin.
But yeah, I mean,
Um,
at this point, did we learn that at this point? Because,
well,
well,
she basically reveals herself to Jacob. Like she says a line, but she reveals herself to Jacob, but she doesn't reveal herself to Kate until like the end of the book.
yeah, yeah, no, she takes Jacob captive. She
Yeah,
sees him out, finds him, calls Kate, and kind of it's just a hostage situation.
yeah,
Oh
and
man,
base,
such great
yeah,
page layouts, man. These page layouts are so good.
yeah, and basically the whole last issue is her trying to find her father
Yep.
and her fighting. So, like these title pages, like I know we keep marveling at the art here, but these title pages are so good because the title page for the last issue is her utility belt,
Yep.
and it like splits up like the top and the bottom of the page. And I also love the lettering in the titles because they're all different
Mhm.
between each issue.
Yeah.
Um, and she's basically the last issue is her just confronting Alice. She saves her father, and she basically hunts down Alice, and they fight in a plane. And they fight, and basically Kate knocks her out of the plane, and she allegedly falls to her death. But that's not the end of Alice. Like, we don't see the body, so we know she doesn't die.
Right.
She basically saves the day. She saves her father. She defeats Alice. And that's where Alice reveals herself as her sister.
Right.
And she doesn't really believe it because she thought her sister died.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really great because, like, it, as you said, it really shows how deep Kate cares about, like, the people she's close to.
Yeah. And I thought the reveal was spectacular. It's like as like, she's struggling to hold on. She looks at Kate and would say, "You have dad's eyes," or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that the line? Was that the exact line?
Yeah, you have our father's eyes, and then she lets go.
Yep. And it's crazy because if this is in fact her twin sister, I just love the amount of parallel because you will soon learn this story goes into Batwoman's origin story. And it's interesting how they both they both parallel each other, and it all stems from the same exact incident. You know what I mean? They branch from each other in two totally separate
Yeah.
directions.
And this is where we go into the origin story, which is the next few issues.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about this is that we talked about this before, is that in the previous story, it's more like Williams' style, where it's like very mythic and painterly, and this is very stripped back. It's like Mazzucchelli from Year One.
Yep.
And it's great because it totally, like, there are some instances where it flips back to the regular style, and it's a great, like, contrast between, like, the past and the present. And that's one of my main problems with artists nowadays, that they kind of have a problem when they do flashbacks because they don't, like, change their art style between past and present, and it
Yep.
kind of gets confusing on which part is which. And
Yeah.
that's what I love about this, is that there's a complete disconnect between what is past and what is present in the art style.
100%. And it's like neither one of them. I mean, I prefer the mythic stuff just because I think it's so visually
Yeah,
incredible. But I think everything, like every bit of the artwork is great. And you had brought up earlier, that we're lauding on the art. And I mean, I think that's one of the biggest strengths that this story has is J.H. Williams on art. And I often think that artists go a little bit under recognized, like myself included. The first thing I talk about is the story, the character development. And I've, especially since I started doing YouTube, I've tried to be a lot more, I've tried to integrate the importance of the artist and the inker and the color in
yeah,
kind of providing to this greater mechanism that is a comic book. Um, but, this book, I think it's spectacular that the thing that I think we're talking about most is J.H. Williams' art. A,
yeah,
how versatile he is. B, how incredible, like in unique the page layouts are, especially again the
yeah,
title page on every single issue is really unique, and he uses like his surroundings or what he's drawing in the background of the panel to
yeah,
make the title every time.
yeah. Um, going into the story, it's basically Kate Kane's childhood, and it's her and her twin sister Elizabeth, and it's basically their mom chewing them out because Kate is basically skipping out on classes and having her sister fill in. I felt that was a great, like, that's what a mom would do if you're, like, skipping school.
Yep.
Um, and she basically chews them out, and it cuts to her father, and her father's a soldier. I don't know if he's I don't know, I think it's captain. I don't know what his rank is at this
Uh,
moment in time.
I know that well, at least in the present, he's colonel.
He's colonel. I don't, yeah, I don't know what his rank is in the past,
Yeah.
but it basically shows him. I think he's tracking down, like, this terrorist sect, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and it basically switches in between his story and Kate's story. And it basically, like, as the issues go on, it gets closer and closer to the present. And basically, what Kate grows up, she joins West Point, which is a prestigious military school, and she gets bunked with another woman. I forgot her name at the moment, but um, this is where it doesn't get political, but like Greg Rucka brings in, because he actually thanks like a soldier in one of the issues for research, because Greg Rucka is a very research heavy writer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, his and a big example of that is Queen and Country, which is very focused on like British intelligence. And at the end of like the third volume, which collects like scripts and stuff, he specifically says like which parts he could do better on because he did such heavy research on that series. He's very particular with what he writes, and that's what I love about Greg Rucka. He's very detail oriented when
Yeah,
he's a writer.
100% too. And you know, I kind of love the narrative style throughout, and like the way he plays with it. It's all very non-linear. You know, like it's their childhood. You know, we get to see a little bit of the dynamic between Kate and Elizabeth, and how Kate
Yeah.
was very much like the dominant personality. And I love. Did you notice that the colors of their winter jackets
Um,
were indicative of the colors of their outfits as hero and villain?
oh no, I didn't. I did not notice that. That's a great thing that I didn't notice.
Yeah,
Um,
he plays a lot of
oh
that.
yeah, I see it now because Kate's is black and red and hers is white.
Purple,
That
green, yeah.
yeah, white, purple, green. That's really cool.
And then even if you look at like the little patterns on their scarves
Yeah,
in that issue, like you know, like Kate, very jagged lines, and Elizabeth has those little swirls that J.H. Williams uses to kind of almost embroider the panels in every
yeah,
page.
and and it cuts back to the present, and she's basically I guess trying to cure herself of the toxin. I think that's what she's trying to do because she's like
Yeah,
in a lab and
she's
she's
also
trying to like concoct an antidote.
right, and she's also dealing with like the general
Yeah,
fallout of you know, her potential sister falling out of a plane.
that's true.
And
And it's a very small thing here, but I love how J.H. Williams draws Commissioner Gordon. It's
mhm,
very animated series, and I love that.
yeah,
Um, and another page, another double page spread where it's Kate in the middle, and then it's all the panels around her, where
yeah,
she's like trying to figure out the antidote for the toxin.
yeah.
And
And again, it like if you look at the jagged lines on this, they're reminiscent of the same pattern on her scarf in the flashbacks.
yeah,
When you know when they're Kate pages versus Elizabeth pages, which I think is really
yeah,
really interesting.
and it gets like as we get deeper, we figure out that Kate's mother and her sister got kidnapped. Um,
Well,
by
they all got kidnapped.
they all got kidnapped, but the main people who got kidnapped were like they all got kidnapped, but the main person that was very important was her mother, Gabby Kane, and she was because she was the one that was like hooded and like all wrapped up and all roped up,
Right, right,
and
yeah. And if we haven't said it already, both of Kate and Elizabeth's parents were military personnel
yes, both
with
of them
vital
were.
information. And with her father overseas, Gabby was looking to take the girls out. I think it was like for chocolate and waffles, and they're essentially uh, what's the word I'm looking?
Basically jumped
Yeah,
and
I
yeah,
mean, you know, the whatever assailants are going after them crash a big rig into the side of their car, you know,
and
and
take them
they they kidnap the mother and the
and
two girls.
yeah, and this is basically when her origin kicks into gear where um Jacob breaks into the little shack where they're being held, and he basically shoots into the dark, and he sees that Gabby is dead, and he's basically it's so heartbreaking where he's like carrying Kate in his arms, and she's looking back, and she's like, "Don't look."
Oh yeah.
You don't want to see.
Yep. And
And
she
you see
opened her
Kate,
eyes.
yeah, she just opens her eyes. And here's where the fan theorists come in. Some people think it wasn't the terrorists that killed Gabby Kane. It was actually Jacob, and one of his bullets hit Gabby accidentally.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean
That's one of the fan theories.
it's left very ambiguous because it's
Yeah.
dark, and the next thing you know, the cover or whatever they use to um, intercept like Kate's vision, like it's some sort of cover they pull off her head, and everybody's dead. So that I think I think it's a really legitimate theory to make. I almost feel like that's the most like I feel like what Rucka's trying to imply.
Insinuate. Yeah. And then it goes into the next issue where it focuses on this ring, which is basically a Kane family heirloom. And they're basically saying how she's basically bragging to all of her all of her people, and she's like look at how great this ring is, and they're like, oh, it's so pretty.
At this point, she's a cadet at West Point.
She's a cadet at West Point, and she's again, she's a lesbian with her bunkmate. They're shacking it up, and she gets called in by her commanding officer, and he basically confronts her that she's basically going against the don't ask, don't tell policy. And he basically tells her to lie about it, and she's like, no, I'm gay. Then she gets discharged from West Point.
Right. And what's great here is I love it's really after this where they establish a relationship between Kate and her father.
Yeah.
You know, and when she gets kicked out, Jacob is actually really proud of Kate for standing on her laurels, you know, and really being proud of who she is.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. And again, they jump narratively. It's Kate trying to work off whatever this antitoxin or whatever this nerve toxin is.
Yeah.
And you know, it's all going back and forth, and then we get to Kate post dishonorable discharge.
Yeah.
And let's see. And then they do a flash forward. Jacob gets remarried, and I know this involves one of your favorite characters. So if you want to lead this next conversation,
it picks up with Renee Montoya, and basically they get together, of course, because they and basically Kate and Renee have a falling out because Kate doesn't want Renee to go into her job. She's like, why can't you just stay and hang out? And Renee is like, I have to, it's my duty. And they basically have a falling out, and Renee leaves Kate. And that's where the whole backstory with them in 52 picks up with. And then Batman comes in and saves Kate.
Yeah, there's
at the end.
There's a mugger that goes after Kate, and she actually uses her military training and is able to, knock the guy out. And you find out that Batman was watching the whole time.
Yeah.
And he just kind of lends a hand, to help her up, and zips away into the night, and it's just left with her staring at the bat signal. And for me, this is very much, a parallel to the bat coming through the glass, Father, I shall become a bat scene from year one. This is her equivalent.
Yeah. And I love how her hair is very prominent too, like her stark red hair against a black bat.
Yeah. No, it is a really beautiful contrast here. I've always loved that, like the black and red for the Bat family. When Tim Drake updated his Robin costume for New 52.
Yeah.
Black, red, yellow, and even like Terry McGinnis Batman Beyond costume and Kate Kane. I find it really appealing. I just love the way it looks.
There's a lot of contrast with it. like, because usually a bat costume is usually just black and yellow.
Yeah.
But like sometimes they add some colors to it. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Like some people like the blue. Some people don't like the blue. But then it goes into the last issue where basically it picks up with Kate in a bar, and
It's
there's basically a bar fight that breaks out.
yeah, and it's very much like like it's very Gotham Central E.
Yeah, especially since Rucka also wrote Gotham Central,
Right, yeah, him and
and
Rucka.
Renee Montoya was a big part of Gotham Central.
And both played a pretty decent role.
Yeah, yeah. Not as big as Renee, but
Right,
because
yeah.
Renee was a big focal point,
Right,
and
yeah.
Renee is also one of Rucka's like
Babies.
babies. Yeah.
Right.
And what I like about this is that Renee is basically like, why are you here? She's basically chewing Kate out for being in this bar, which is kind of funny because when we pick up with her in 52, she's like wasting away in a lesbian bar.
Right.
That's kind of a cool callback to 52.
Yeah, I mean Greg Rucka very much like he knows what he's doing when he plays with the pacing of time and how time is going to progress between his
Yeah.
stories. And again, yeah, I do really like that bit of a callback here. Um, but eventually Kate decides to take matters into her own hands and again somewhat reminiscent, although she almost does things in the opposite order. She actually does them in the exact opposite order for Bruce, whereas Bruce did the training, went out, failed. I shall become a bat.
Yeah,
Kate,
she went out first.
she
Yeah.
was the I became a bat. She failed, and then she did the training.
Training, yeah. Because here she's very crude because she basically has a bulletproof vest and a gas mask on.
And a crowbar. Yeah.
That's her costume.
Right.
Very crude, very simple.
Right.
Then she
she gets confronted by her father.
yeah, she gets confronted by her father, and she, he basically tells her like, why are you using tear gas? Because she's like showering, and like that's the problem with tear gas. It like gets into your hair, and it's like really hard to get out.
Yeah.
And that's what I also love about Greg Rucka is that like he's very family oriented. Because even with his Wonder Woman, he's very much into like the relationship between Wonder Woman and Hippolyta, and in Lazarus, um, he's very focused on Forever's connection to her father,
Mm-hmm.
and and this is another great example of her being like big connective tissue with her father and herself, and how her father is an influence on her as a character.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can very much see the tough love, but also like both of them realize that they're the only family that each other's got
Yeah.
at this point. And Jacob embraces her becoming Batwoman because
Yeah.
not only does he want to see his daughter, accomplishing something that's ultimately fulfilling to an end, but also, one of the lines that I think resonates a lot is, "I found my way to serve."
Yeah.
Kate feels like she's finally found her way to serve, and it's not under anyone else's jurisdiction but her own.
Yeah. I love this monologue in the last issue where it's basically one of many of the great J.H. Williams splashes, but it's in his like more stripped down style, not his mythic style. And what I love about it is that there's Kate's skin is completely like pale white, and is a great use of negative space.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of artists don't use a lot of negative space in their art because they want to like cram a bunch of stuff in it.
Right. And the page, just for those of you that don't have something open, it's a flash forward. You find out that Jacob Kane is using all of his military connections to kind of fast track her training, her advanced training to become a vigilante. And it's this awesome little like montage of her training panel by panel, and through the middle of it all, it's just like a graceful Kate Kane where, again, like Taylor was saying, there's this beautiful use of this like negative space for her skin. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what's great is that I'll read part of the monologue. It's like, Make no mistake, you do this, you're going to war. Define the goal, define the objective, define the terms of victory. Because if victory means bringing your mother and sister back, you've already lost. If victory means taking revenge for what happened to them, you've already lost. But if your objective is to save just one life, to protect one innocent, I'll just read the rest of it. Um, to keep one person from having their life shattered in violence, and to come home alive when you're done, then you can prevail. And God helps whatever poor bastard tries to stand in your way. Such a great monologue.
Yeah, it's really good. And it's really indicative of how she differs from Bruce. Bruce is the exact opposite. He's so
Yeah,
obsessive that, to him, his job isn't done until everyone's saved. And you know that that's a lost cause because that'll never happen. Whereas Kate kind of operates one at a time. Like if I can save one life at a time, then I've done my job, and I love that, and it's just very exemplary of the divergent paths that both Bruce and Kate took and how,
agreed.
they are working towards the same end, but the means by which they do it are so very different.
And and that's what's great is that again, flashing forward to Timeless Detective, when she killed Clayface, that was a great point that really like hammered that point home.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Like,
Um, all right,
but
so
going,
after we see that little montage with that awesome, awesome internal monologue, what happens next
yeah,
for Kate? Where are we following her to?
um, um, she basically,
Well, she comes. It's her coming back home from her
yeah,
training.
it's her coming back home from her training, and they're basically like excited to see her back, and like congratulate her, and then she basically tries on her new costume. And this is the first time she wears the Batwoman costume,
Yeah, without the
and,
bat emblem on her
and
chest.
without the bat denim, and of course she's smiling when she's wearing it. There's
Yeah.
like she's wearing it, and then like it's a panel, and she breaks the panel. Like she breaks the panel with her legs,
Yep.
and you see her smile, and then it fades into the present.
God, dude, I can't stop gawking at this art.
Yes.
It's so good. It's so freaking good. Like
Yeah.
DC, you're not listening, but let this man do a story on Detective 1000. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen. I know you already did your press release. Just do it. Do it
Yeah.
anyways.
Or if anything, like get him on a Black Label book with Greg Rucka.
Oh, please. Now, imagine a freaking Batwoman Black Label
Oh,
with the
with
two
his
of them.
art, with with the like prestige format. His
Oh
art
my
is made
God.
for prestige format.
Oh, 100%. Especially with the interesting page layouts. He has way more space to play around with that.
Yeah.
And the compositions. Oh, those would be freaking beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And like these last few pages are just a few splash pages. And another great one where like it's Kate on the top and then the bat symbol and then it breaks down into like the jagged lines and the layout.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and it's basically her um, just going on another adventure. She's
Yeah, I mean,
continuing her.
I mean, the story really ends with her really becoming Batwoman.
Yeah,
And from what I understand, we get a little bit more of, excuse me,
yeah,
we get
it's
a little
fine.
bit more of Elizabeth in the new 52 Batwoman run, which I've yet to read. It's something I definitely
Yeah,
want to get into after this.
yeah,
But,
um,
you know, overall, man, like this is a fantastic story, and I actually really like the way this is structured. For me, Kate Kane has always been one of those characters that's been really mired in a lot of really awkward, really awkward continuity.
yeah,
They've addressed
because
that in like Grayson, you know,
yeah, because before this, the first version of Batwoman was introduced in the 50s as a love interest to Bruce.
right?
And then because well her name was Kathy Kane in there, and then like after the 50s came on, they basically dismantled the Bat family, and then like Kate Kane again wasn't introduced like until 30 years later, until 52, like 40 or 50 years later.
Did you know
It
that the original concept art for
was for
Batwoman's
Batgirl.
costume is supposed to be Barbara?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Barbara because they were going to age Barbara up and give her this costume. And it
Yeah,
was designed by Alex Ross.
Alex Ross. Yeah, and I mean, I really like that idea. Like, imagine if Greg Rucka did that take, like
Yeah, that would be cool.
his Black Label take, and the whole, and it's just Barbara.
Yeah, that would be cool.
No, that'd be
And
awesome. I don't know. I just, again, one of the things that just fascinates me about Kate Kane is the way that she parallels Bruce.
same.
And Batman is just like his ultimate spitting image um, of obsession. You know,
Yeah,
Bruce Wayne is, and it's ultimately, obviously, he's attempting to do the right thing, but because he's never going to be satisfied until it's over, meaning he'll never be satisfied, the job is never done. And it just creates this constant struggle where Kate Kane kind of builds up little bits of satisfaction with,
yeah,
every life she saves, but that's never good enough for Batman.
yeah. She's like, she saves a life and like the job is done, but then she goes on to try to save another one. With Bruce is like, I gotta save everyone, but you can't save everyone. It's kind of like the Superman debacle where he tries to save everyone, but he can't.
Right. Right. It's really great, and I feel like you get to see a lot of that in Elegy. And for those of you that don't know, Elegy, uh, the title Elegy, or an elegy is like a poem of like reflection. You know what I mean? It's like a really lamenting, um, I don't want to say cathartic, but I'll leave it at reflection. It's like a really poetic reflection, and that's really what this is. I mean, ultimately, Elizabeth, or Alice, is a reflection of Kate Kane. She is the what looks back at her, the other side of the mirror. They
Yeah,
are twins. They are very much the physical embodiment of each other, going along separate paths, spawning at this one point.
yeah. And what I love about it, another thing that I love about it is that like a main factor in Kate's character is that she's lesbian, but that's not a main focus in this book.
It's very organic. You know what I
Yeah, it's
mean?
very organic. It's not forced. It plays with it well,
Right.
and it's like another big factor in Kate is that she's also Jewish, so she's one of, if not the only gay Jewish character in comics,
Right.
like at least like in terms of her stature.
Right.
But
No, I mean, Kate Kane breaks a lot of social and political boundaries as a character. And I think that the reason why she's been so popular amongst fans that really have read Kate Kane stories is that, like you were alluding to before, it's very organic. It's not forced in. You know what I mean? You can tell that Greg Rucka certainly wants to make sure that there's representation in comic books as a medium.
yeah,
But at the same time, he's not going out of his way to do it. He's like, if I can fit it in there, like I want to put it in there, but I'm not putting it in there unless it has a sense of relevance. And for example, it was relevant because when we're going to the whole West Point thing,
yeah,
where she really showing that she's homosexual was an outlet for Rucka to say that Kate Kane stands on her laurels. You know what I mean? She stands her
yeah,
ground and fights for ultimately what she believes to be the right thing to do. And at the time, it was being
taboo.
fully,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
it
taboo.
was, yeah, it was taboo, but also, it also meant risking her entire career.
Yeah, because like this came out like at the end of Bush, at the end of the Bush administration, at the beginning of Obama, and this is when like Don't Ask, Don't Tell was in like full effect. Like homosexuality was not like allowed in military service, and I feel that was worked perfectly into this book.
No, 100%. And it's, again, it's an organic, subtle commentary on the whole thing. You know, I'm I'm never one of those types of fans to shy away from topical stories, because ultimately that's what some of the best comic books ever are based around. I
Yeah,
mean, you know what I mean? You look at stories like The Dark Knight Returns, it's ultimately, playing off of the scarcity of conservatism and their you know, I guess their love of war and their love of
yeah,
aggression,
yeah.
and the Red Scare.
Watchmen was the Red Scare.
Sentiments entirely off of the Red Scare. And again, I think the Watchmen is a lot more implicit, in the presence of the Red Scare on the story than something like this is.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, both done really well, and they feel organic. I don't feel like
Mhm.
he's not writing this entire story to make a point. He has a story that he can use this space to make that point that will also further the narrative that he's trying to
Yeah.
build here. I mean, Rucka, I know that you hold Rucka in very high regard, and you've read a number of his stories. But even, someone like myself, like I think his Batman is entirely underrated.
Yeah, me too. It's very overlooked.
I think it's incredibly overlooked. Like him and Brubaker are two, and we were talking about this earlier about like the 2000s were some of the best times for DC. And you know who are reoccurring writers for DC? Greg
Welcome,
Rucka and Ed
Rubigo.
Brubaker.
Yeah.
They were definitely huge contributors to that. Definitely big contributors to that, man. Um,
Yeah.
but
And
overall, I mean, I would like if my question to you, if you had to give this book and or this story an overall rating, what do you think you would give Batwoman Elegy?
I would probably say there are some points where previous context might make it confusing at points with like the religion of crime and stuff. So with those little nitpicks, I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. It's
I
a
would agree.
great, it's a great book, amazing art, some of the best art like I've seen in a comic.
In general, yeah. I mean, J.H.
Yeah,
Williams knocks it out of the park. The writing is spectacular. Like you said, Greg Rucka does a really great job of pulling plot points that he set up in other titles to kind of enhance the story for those,
yeah,
like for people like you that have followed him all the way through. And I don't know, for me, like, I was telling you how I haven't finished 52. And even then, I still read this story and got a good handle on it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And he uses a lot of really subtle symbolism. Again, with the story being named Elegy, ultimately like a reflective poem on oneself, like a lamenting. Um, the entirety of the story is about two reflections and parallels, and we've talked minutely about how it's Kate versus Batman and their transition into becoming crime fighters, but also it's Kate and Alice who we're led to believe is her twin sister. And I love how it all kind of wraps up really nicely. You can very much tell that the central thematic is reflecting on oneself, and Kate can do that because she sees a literal, like what she could have become. You know
yeah,
what I mean? If not for, I mean, maybe her upbringing in the end, maybe it's just a commentary on Kate Kane as a character,
yeah,
generally speaking. But really, really great story. I
yeah,
will say that sometimes I think the villains are a little bit too on the nose. Uh,
yeah,
you can very much tell that it's intentional.
yeah,
It does get to be a little bit corny. I know it's intentional, so it tends not to distract me from the quality of the work, but it's
yeah,
definitely a little bit noticeable.
yeah. I can agree with that. Like, especially since the story is so short. Um,
Yeah, it is really short.
like Elegy is only 4 issues, and that's like because the origin story is 3 issues and Elegy is 4 issues, and Craig Rucka is a writer that loves doing like episodic type stories. Like when it came to Gotham Central, like of course he co-wrote it with Brubaker,
Mhm.
but the longest the story went was 5 issues.
Right.
It was very short and to the point, and there were some like 1 issue reprieves, and that's what made Gotham Central such a great series.
Yeah,
Um,
I have like the first 2 or 3 volumes sitting on my shelf back there.
yeah,
Really, really
it's
great.
yeah, it's one of my favorites.
It's what the Gotham
Um,
TV show should have been.
yeah, agreed. And
100%. And
yeah,
Andrew Har in the chat says he agrees that when comics tackle topical situations, comic books were born from tackling said situations. He said, heck, even The Authority and a ton of books in DC reflected the times of the 90s and the 2000s.
yeah, agreed.
Oh, 100%.
Um,
I mean, and that's some of the strengths, you know what I mean? Like, I know amongst like actual comic book fans, Mark Millar's Civil War is very divisive. Some people really like it, some people really don't. I happen to be in the camp that like it. I might be biased because it was one of the first Marvel stories I've ever read. The art was great, by the way. Steve McNiven kills it.
Yeah,
But again, it's entirely topical on at the time. You know, the Bush administration was constantly kind of pulling our troops into war. You know,
yeah.
and it felt entirely unnecessary. So
And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but this story was published in Detective Comics 854 to 860. And when Kate became important again, she was reintroduced in Detective Comics.
hmm,
So I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if Tynan was,
like
I don't want to
copy.
say in league with Greg Rucka with that, because I don't think, because like, I don't know how much connection, because Greg Rucka, like, it's hard to talk about Greg Rucka because like he took down his Twitter account like back in the summer,
Yeah,
but he's on Tumblr, and he said like Kate has changed so much since he wrote her that like she's kind of like not like a totally different character, but like a different character, if you know what I mean.
right.
Um, and I love what Tynan did with her in Detective, but
Hmm.
I agree it kind of was different because like Tynan went into more like um she Tynan really dove into like the difference between her and Batman. And like you said, like this one does dive into that, but as you said, it's more about her and Alice and not her and Batman. But
Yeah,
with Tynan, it was more about her and Batman and like the difference between how she leads the team and how Batman leads the team and
right.
all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this more or less is just the duality of trauma, you know.
Yeah,
With the reflection of Kate versus Alice, like I've brought up on a number of times, who they are as characters all spawns from that one same moment, and
yeah,
it's just how each of these characters were dealt with trauma. And this is actually one of the few times I'll compliment Tom King's Batman. There was an entire issue where it showed the parallel between Bruce Wayne and Bane, and how
yeah,
they were essentially like they're very similar characters but with very separate, very different upbringings, and how it very much feels like either character, like either Bruce Wayne or Bane could have been the other if
yeah.
for different circumstances.
And sadly, after this story, and I think after New Krypton, because Greg Rucka was part of New Krypton, he left DC because he had some editorial falling outs, and he went to Marvel.
Was there a particular editor that he had a problem with?
I think it was just what he was doing. Like he wasn't really happy with his work during New Krypton, and like they weren't really um, like after he did Batwoman Elegy. Like no one really used Batwoman after he finished with Renee Montoya. No one really used Renee that much. So he left. He left DC, went to Marvel, did what people say is one of the greatest runs on Punisher, probably next to Garth Ennis.
Right.
Um,
By the way,
I,
the current Punisher run right now by Matthew Rosenberg is a smash hit. I'm loving it right now.
yeah. Then that's where he started doing like all of his indie work. Like Lazarus started in 2013. It's currently on hiatus now. It's been on hiatus since July, sadly, because what they're doing is that they're moving from a monthly format to a quarterly oversized format. So there's more for Michael Lark to draw. So it's taking longer for the book to come out. Black Magic is also on hiatus, sadly. Like all of his books are on hiatus, which kind of sucks because I'm missing my Greg Rucka fix, but
Yeah.
he's he is working on a Black Label book. We have no info on it. It's a Wonder Woman. It's called Wonder Woman Diana's Daughter. It was announced when Black Label was announced, but we know no info on it. Um, no artists, no story. Well, we kind of have a story synopsis, but I don't remember it. But there's no artist. Um, rumored, there's a rumor that he's doing a Lois Lane book for Black Label, which I'm all for. Um, again, no info. That's just a rumor, and that rumor was perpetuated by Bleeding Cool, which is very tenuous at best
Yeah.
when it comes to bleeding cool rumors. Um, and he did, of course, he came back to DC with his great run on Wonder Woman at the start of Rebirth, and that with that, like his run was great, but it really burned him out because he wasn't used to writing biweekly books.
Yeah.
And I think that was the problem with most of Rebirth is that it was just burnout. And that's why most of the books now are going back to monthly instead of biweekly.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed it though. Like the first, I think, dare I say, 2 years of Rebirth was fairly spectacular. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
totally separate tangent.
Yeah,
Versus
agreed.
now, I mean, I would love to see like Greg Rucka tackle Batwoman again.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought this story was great. J.H. Williams, I just want to see J.H. Williams in Gotham again. I'm
Yeah,
entirely selfish.
agreed.
Like
Like,
he, no, continue. Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I know he reintroduced Sasha Bordeaux in his Wonder Woman run, and Sasha Bordeaux, of course, was a big character in OMAC Project,
Oh yeah,
and she was a big character in Checkmate, his Checkmate run.
yeah,
And since they reintroduced Maxwell Lord with Justice League versus Suicide Squad, they haven't really like went into Checkmate that much because they're mainly focusing on like Spiral and those. And she's, I like Spiral, I like Grayson, but like we're missing Checkmate, which is I think the premier spy organization for the DC universe. But
yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely was in the 2000s, and I think they even when they brought up rivaling spy groups in the Spiral book, I think they only name dropped Checkmate maybe once.
yeah, like well, Maxwell Lord came up in Grayson as the leader of Checkmate. Like Checkmate was in the New 52, but for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, there's Argus, which no one cares about.
Mm,
Um, Argus is basically it's basically DC's version of Shield.
yeah.
And that's why no one cares about it because it's just basically Shield.
Just one less
Um,
letter for their acronym.
yeah. Um, and then there's the DEO, which is run by Director Bones, which is an awesome character design. It's just like a skeleton guy who smokes a cigar. I love his design, but his the DEO isn't really used that much. They're mainly used in Supergirl, which I don't read because I'm not really interested in Supergirl that much. But that's another tangent. Um, yeah, I just think with Greg Rucka is that I don't think he is interested in doing ongoing books for DC. I just think he wants to do what he wants, and I think they should just make him the face of Black Label and say, Greg, here's Black Label. You can do whatever you want here.
Yeah, I mean, talking Black Label is a side topic even for another day because Lord knows what's going on. After the first issue, I feel like the first issue of Batman Damned really made the editors like crack down, which I think is stupid. I think ultimately, like,
Yeah,
if you're doing a mature label, you should let the adults write adult stories.
yeah,
I know that some people feel like you don't need profound nudity or blood or gore, but you know what? If that's what the writer intended, I would
yeah,
say 8 to 9 times out of 10, I think there's a significant reason for it. Namely, again, using the example from Batman Damned, um, that was just a part of Lee Bermejo expressing Batman's vulnerability. You
mm,
know what I mean? And it was literally him, being fully exposed
yeah,
down to the very the what is him just as a bare man and nothing else. There's no bat to shade him, and it scares me a little bit.
yeah,
Like I said, I know, I get it. Like it's not a huge thing, but I don't know. I think that it did play a significant role in what Bermejo was trying to do. I don't see the point in doing
yeah,
it. I hope that they don't start limiting guys like Rucka and get on his bad side again,
yeah,
because that would be a damn shame.
yeah,
I would love for Rucka to. I'd love for him to just write in Gotham again. To be honest, like
yeah,
I would love a Cassandra Cain story from Greg Rucka.
yeah, same.
I think that'd be spectacular. I really, since Rebirth, one of the things I've really, really, really wanted was Kate to take up Orphan as like more her protege.
Oh yeah,
Because I've seen a lot of the Kate or like Orphans kind of on the sidelines, like watching everybody else. And I was like, all right, like if you're really gonna make Bruce that much of a shit guardian, like let her go with Kate, and it would be.
yeah,
I feel like you would have a great like you make them come together out of necessity, and they slowly like she slowly learns to forgive Kate for what she did. To
yeah.
I think it has a lot of
Because
story potential, a lot of conflict to write.
yeah. Because what's great is that would build off a lot with Clayface's um killing, because we know he's not. Well, we know he's not dead now, but Cassandra still thinks he's dead, and Kate was the main perpetrator of the action, and she was the one that was the most emotionally connected to Clayface.
Right. No, I mean, I feel like at least the character dynamics between the two would write themselves.
Yeah.
But in summary, if you had to give your final thoughts, going back to Batwoman Elegy, let the people know what are your if you had to sum up this book, your feelings on the book, how would you do that?
It's a great introspective look at the. I'm trying to think of the right word. The the life of a female in Gotham, I guess. I don't know if that's the right thing to say,
I mean,
but
I see where you're going with that. It's
yeah, I just can't think of the way to word it
yeah,
correctly.
no, I mean, I'll tag in, if you'd allow that. Uh,
Yeah, you can go.
I think that this is a great way to explore character dynamics and how Kate is very much divergent from both Batman and Alice in different ways. Obviously, the focus of this story centralizes on how her and Alice diverge and ultimately become two ends to a balance to a scale. Whereas, her and Batman just kind of becomes like different variations of the same mean. They're trying to accomplish the same thing. And this book definitely plays with a lot of different like dynamics that Kate offers that, I mean, I'm a Bruce Wayne guy, like clearly, you know,
Yeah,
Batman's my guy, but she offers some very interesting things as a character that you could never get from someone like Bruce Wayne, and she breaks a lot of boundaries. Greg Rucka does an excellent job. I mean, again, I can't speak for women. I'm not a woman, but I think Greg
yeah,
Rucka does an excellent job empowering women and making, you know, like very organic choices. Because I feel like sometimes, especially when men try to write for women or women who are very much just focused on giving other women a spotlight, they tend to overemphasize things that just feel unnecessary, and that's why someone like me would tend to have a bad reaction to that. But for me, Rucka shows here, and amongst a number of his other work, that he doesn't write a woman for the sake of writing a woman. He writes profoundly women characters because they are inherently interesting in and of themselves. You know what I mean? It's not because they're
hmm
female exactly. It's because he knows that these female characters are interesting. They don't get the love that they should. He's going to bring it out in them. And in Kate Kane's case more specifically, he pretty much reinvented Batwoman and invented Kate Kane along with Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, and Mark Waid. But it's this book in particular just explores a lot of different dynamic. They pick a lot of great plot threads from 52. So if you read 52, you're going to be in for a treat, a continuation of that narrative for Kate Kane. If you didn't, I still think you'll be fine.
yeah,
Totally think you'll be fine because culty crime organizations are not unfamiliar in Gotham City. So
yeah,
even if this is the first time you're seeing something like that, it's I don't think it's going to be confusing at all. Like I said,
yeah,
I've read parts of 52. I have some background understanding on yeah, Intergang and Bruno
yeah,
Mannheim, but I think you'd be fine. I would definitely
yeah,
suggest picking up this book. The more I look at J.H. Williams' art, the more I just
yeah,
want like a big oversized edition of this book because
yeah.
it is
And
beautiful.
I gotta say, the Elegy trade paperback is out of print, so it's really hard to find. but they did a reprint called Batwoman by Greg Rucka and J.H. Williams, which also collects a 3-issue story called Cutter with art by Jock.
Yeah.
Jock isn't really my style.
Yeah.
I know you love his art, but he's not my bag.
I will give you that he was an acquired taste. Like when I first got into
Yeah,
comics, I very much was like I like DC's house style. It was the
yeah.
Tony Daniels, the Jim Lees, Greg Capullo. I wouldn't even call Greg Capullo house as much.
Jason
Um,
Fabok.
the Jason
Yeah,
Fabrics. Um, but there are certain things that I think Jock has strengths in. It took me a while to get into his Batman because I realized that there's a lot of really great, like more abstract symbolism in Gotham
yeah,
and surrounding Batman to where like I love Ben Templesmith when he draws like cities, darkness. He did
yeah,
he did part of that little Gotham by Midnight miniseries or maxi series, even though it's 12 issues, I believe. That looked beautiful. And Jock has some strengths, namely, if you guys haven't read the Batman Who Laughs #1, I think his art is really solid in this book. I think it's some of his best, most concise artwork in the sense that it's far less abstract than what he normally does. Um,
yeah.
but you know, it's great. I mean, I didn't get to read. I kind of peeked through that story because I digitally bought
Yeah, the
the
collection.
yeah, that
Yeah,
collection. So I haven't gotten through
yeah.
that yet. But
And I gotta say, if you love this book, I highly recommend the New 52 Batwoman. There's the J.H. Williams and Hayden Blackman run, I think, is 4 trades. The first story is on DC Universe, and I read it and I loved it. It's very supernatural, like crime thriller, and a more amazing J.H. Williams panel layouts.
yeah, no, I mean, I actually it gets me really motivated to go check that out because I've heard great things about it. And
Yeah,
again, H. Williams' art is absolutely incredible.
yeah,
Before we close out, we got some comments again from Ant Duhar. He said, and he's referring to my little pitch for Kate Kane. He said it's a solid idea of having Kate guiding Cassie Kane. Ironically, too, like their last names
yeah. Their last names are the same but spelled differently.
felt differently. Yeah, as a mentor figure, she needs more love and care as a character than what DC's been doing with her as of late. Well, if we get that Batman and the Outsiders run anytime soon, hopefully someone will fix it. And he said he also agrees with the importance of organically writing women as genuine characters rather than making statements that don't enhance the importance of the story as it should. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, I know that like people just want representation for the sake of representation, but I think representation becomes valueless unless it's genuine. If it's just like,
Agreed.
for me, like, for example, like I was raised a Catholic. So I've always, when it came to Marvel characters, I was always really, really close with the character of Daredevil. I was like, wow, like this guy is an open Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. And, his entire pursuit of vigilantism is not piggybacked off of his faith, but it's certainly a big component. And that was organic. It was entirely organic.
Yeah.
Nobody forced Matt Murdock to be a Catholic. And I feel like that's very much in the same vein of Greg Rucka and how he tends to handle female characters, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it also doesn't help that he surrounds himself with incredibly talented female creators.
Yeah.
Nicola Scott, Gail. I know him and Gail Simone are quite close. Um,
Yeah.
so it's not surprising to me at all, and I think he does again a fantastic job in Batwoman Elegy. If you guys are like remotely interested in just like a really cool, I mean, it's quirky, it's cool, mysterious, dark. It's a really solid book. I really enjoy it. Batwoman, the more I learn about Batwoman, the more I get interested in her as a character because I love how Gotham and her I guess stories in Gotham tend to be borderline between like grit street crime, like mystery and like mystic,
Yeah.
and just uh yeah, I guess that'd be the way to describe it.
And 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 that's a great like distinction because Bruce is more of like the typical superhero like costume crime, Joker, Two-Face, Penguin, and Kate is more like the supernatural side, and
yeah, well, it's like you look at both of them, and they both kind of run the line of like the gritty street detectives, and then when they both go to their extreme, Bruce goes with the Justice League, and it's this big cosmic stuff, and she goes kind of the other direction. It's almost
yeah.
like Justice League versus Justice League Dark. Imagine if Batwoman was on a Justice League Dark team.
Oh, that'd be really cool. I
Uh,
think with Tynan on Justice League Dark, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he might include Batwoman
that'd be great.
in
I
Justice League
almost feel like
Dark.
he's done with her for a little bit, but that would be
Yeah,
that would be great, and I'd be totally fine with seeing Alvaro
yeah,
Martinez.
it would. Agreed, and I would love to see her um interactions with Wonder Woman,
Yeah,
and also her reaction to like Man Bat and Detective Chimp.
yeah,
That
yeah,
I feel that would be really funny.
yeah, absolutely. But I guess we can close out to the public. Thank you guys a bunch for watching. Whether or not you came live, whether or not you're watching this later, I really appreciate it. Thank you for putting up with me and my sick self. Um, A, my voice probably does not sound super appealing. B, being sick and a little bit overtired. My thoughts are probably even more jumbled than usual, meaning my mouth is tied up far more so. Uh, Taylor, man, it was great freaking having you on again, of
Yeah,
course. Uh,
always a pleasure.
and if you guys ever want like great reading suggestions, especially Greg Rucka, like this guy knows his Greg Rucka
Yep,
time. So make sure to go check him out. The link to his Twitter is in the description below. It's at the inspector, right?
yep,
Which is super simple. But if you want to click that link, just click the link. And he's also part of a podcast called 52 PickUP, from what I understand, is like on a hiatus for a little bit.
yeah. It's on a hiatus. Like
Yeah.
the guys have some life issues that kind of complicated the schedule, so we're on hiatus right now. But we have an archive. We have an archive, so you can check out previous episodes.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a bunch of guys just like loving on comics and just you know giving their thoughts on it. So make sure to go check that out. I believe that that's also in the description below to their Stitcher. So make sure you go check them out, man. It was great having you on. I'm really glad you brought up doing some Batwoman, man, because this story was
Yeah,
great,
yeah,
absolutely stellar. But for those of you watching, thank you so much. Don't forget, if you enjoy this, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. Go check it out. Now that we have a fantastic sponsor in AJ's Comics, we're going to be able to do a lot more comic book giveaways for all of you. And it's just, as a big thanks for supporting the channel. I'll probably soon be doing some sort of drawing for in my first Comics Insider video where we're like giving away a free digital code of Shazam #1 and the Batman Who Laughs #1 to you beautiful nerds. So make sure to tune in to our videos more regularly. I'll probably be doing them on Comics Insider videos, and we will be doing on Sunday. So keep up with everything for the channel. Sunday we'll be doing an interview with Brian Edward Hill. He's one of the writers on the TV show Titans via DC Universe, which has gotten, I think, a tremendously positive reaction from people after they got over the trailers.
yeah. I'm
And
I'm 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 a couple episodes behind, but it's a really great show. I really enjoy it.
right, and he had a solid little run on Detective Comics. Has some indefinite Batman and the Outsiders run coming out, and is currently doing American Carnage. It's his it's I guess his own,
Creator own
yeah,
Vertigo,
creator
his Vertigo book.
series printed via Vertigo. Make sure you guys go check that out. It's really, really great. And again, make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below to the channel. Let us know down in the comments going into this. Were you a fan of Batwoman? Kate Kane, did you know much about her? I hope you walked out of this feeling some level of appreciation. Maybe you want to go check out the book. If you're watching this after live, I'll make sure to include a link in the description to get the trade or maybe even that full little collection of Batwoman by Greg Rucka. If you guys purchase it through that link, a small bit of the proceeds go to supporting the channel, which means I can upgrade the gear to provide you guys with better content. So thank you guys so much again for watching. Thank you for participating in the chat. Taylor, it was great chatting with you as always. And this is going to be Dark Knight Nation and Taylor from the 52 Pickup Podcast signing out for the night. Have a
Bye,
good one,
guys.
guys.